Because, I mean, they're variable anyway, aren't they? Herbs are variable. You can have like a strong version of it and a weak version of it, and there's kind of variability. So how could you measure it like a drug, which is simple chemical?
Exactly, just in the way that foods, they're not two florets of broccoli that will have exactly the same chemical components with it.
Yeah, you can have a sweet tomato and a sour tomato.
Precisely. There is variation. There are obviously a lot of herbal products that are standardized to particular components or markers within them, but that doesn't mean all the other components are standardized. They always will vary. And those are inherent problems when you're dealing with a synthetic, new-to-nature molecule and natural products. And this brings us to this issue of, and it's been a long-running debate in the scientific community, does it mean that things natural are, naturally better than things that are unnatural? And from Dounne, we've heard an argument that would support the natural argument. If you look at the scientists that are working on the other side, what they all say is some of the most toxic compounds in nature, in the world, are found in nature.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about Amazon Indians who use natural things as poison on the end of their arrows,
exactly.
Curare and things like that.
And of course, there is never a simple answer. In nature, we find some exceedingly toxic compounds. The bottom line is we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you look at the particular products with which humans have had a very close association, and in many cases we're looking at thousands of years or in hundreds of thousands of years, that's when we see extraordinarily interesting interactions in terms of the genome. The Human Genome Project revealed what our genetic code is in 2003.
Yes.
We're now in this very interesting area of epigenetics where we try and understand how that genome interacts with the wider environment. And of course, one of the reasons the Human Genome Project, which was up until that time the largest project we'd seen on planet Earth, was so well funded is the drug companies thought, hey, if we find out exactly what the genetic code is and we can find out what switches genes on and off, we will have a new... Exactly, that's the whole pharmacogenetics area of...
I think it's fair to say, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're in business, in the medicine business, there's more money to be made by keeping people ill but managed than there is in curing them.
Yes, and there's also more patents to be had if you ensure that your molecules are not bioequivalent. So one of the reasons we see this...
They can't be duplicated with natural herbs.
If I can make a simple point in what is a very complex area, the closer the molecule is, the compounds are to those that we've been exposed to. So we're not talking about spider venom here. We're talking about the products that we have consumed for centuries and centuries and centuries. There is no doubt that there is an adaptation that we have in terms of our genome to those products. So there is a basic truism here that if we're looking at products that are natural and are bioequivalent to which we have been exposed for centuries, they are intrinsically more compatible with our bodies. And that is one of the fundamental issues with naturopathy and natural medicine generally. What people are trying to do and what they've been doing for centuries is looking at whole body solutions using compounds that assist the body to either maintain a state of health or come back to a state of health. When you're looking at a allopathic drug-based model, you're nearly always looking at new-to-nature compounds that can be patented. They need to be new-to-nature in order to receive the patent. And of course, they do tend to go out of fashion once the patents run out. Have you noticed? Vitamin C doesn't go out of fashion. And of course, what those products generally do is they block particular metabolic pathways or receptors in the body. They interfere with metabolism. And that is a fundamental difference between these new-to-nature molecules and those that are naturally occurring, to which we have been exposed for thousands and thousands of years.
A few minutes ago you talked about deadly poisons, natural deadly poisons. And the thought occurs to me that things like chemotherapy are deadly poisons, aren't they? If you take enough chemotherapy, it will kill you. Isn't that the case? So isn't it also the case that if you were to take a tiny amount of these natural poisons, they might have a beneficial effect.
Well, that is indeed exactly what happens. If you look at some of the herbal compounds that are known to be intrinsically toxic, the European Food Safety Authority has developed a big list of herbs used in food supplements that they see as being toxic, addictive, or psychotropic. And of course, in many people's books, that automatically means that herb should either be a medicine or it should be banned. And of course, the reality, all of those things can potentially be toxic. Many of them may be addictive or even psychotropic, but it will depend on the dosage and the frequency at which you take it. It's basic toxicology.
Well,
if you look at nutmeg,
yeah, nutmeg.
We put it on our rice pudding, do we not, from time to time?
And that's psychotropic, isn't it?
And it's very psychotropic, but the dose that you put on your rice pudding tends not to be.
Yeah, I have it in my gratin dauphinoise potatoes.
Perfect, yeah.
And it's very nice in there. Actually.
Exactly,
Yes.
and it's the same as, if you look at some of the extremely important culinary spices, turmeric being a good example, the curcumin in it has profound chemoprotective effects against cancers. Yet
that's your opinion, of course. I've got to say that.
Yes, but there's plenty of science showing that, of course, the amounts that are commonly put into a simple curry may not be the same amounts that might be delivered for medicinal use. And of course, in some cases, it has been registered as a medicine.
And there are things that you can buy, like the apricot kernels, the nut from inside the stone of an apricot, which a lot of people take because they believe they contain a vitamin which is helpful, B17, I think.
B17, Leotril, and of course the Leotril is the synthetic analogue of the naturally occurring vitamin. And of course, there's been profound challenges by regulators about the benefits of or otherwise of Leotril or vitamin B17. There are people who promoted vitamin kernels, one in particular in America, who had repeated episodes of cancer, who's presently in jail. So having a product and making a cancer claim is one of the best ways of finding yourself behind bars.
But you can still buy these apricot kernels. And also, I noticed the other day a foodstuff, a little cake thing that I saw in a shop that had as one of its ingredients.
But you won't see the C word on the packaging, that's for sure.
No, it didn't mention cancer. Anywhere I looked at it, coated in chocolate, but that C word, but not.
Well, as we move into this new regime with this European Nutritional Health Claims Regulation, which incidentally bans any claim, any health claim of any sort.
Except for
unless
Big Pharma.
Well, it bans any health claim on a food of any sort except those that are specifically allowed. And of course, around Europe, there were 44,000 generic claims that were submitted by companies. After the submission of these 44,000 claims, the goalposts were moved, and the European Commission said, you know what, we're going to only accept those claims that are supported by human studies. And immediately, all but 2,500 of them were lost. And now we're seeing the first tranche of claims coming through. But these claims are not just claims on labels, they are claims of any sort, including verbal claims that are made. So potentially, it is one of the biggest infringements on our freedom of speech that we've ever made. If you
this is a human rights issue.
This is a major human rights issue. So if you have, for example, a particular ingredient that is selling in a food, and you have maybe 10 clinical trials that show very considerable evidence that there is a positive effect here, if you so much as utter that effect in association with that product, because it hasn't reached this standard of what is termed generally accepted science, and across the other side of the Atlantic in the United States we see a similar concept being used of significant scientific agreement. That means the orthodox establishment have not yet approved it. You are silenced. To even mention the health benefit is enough to prosecute someone.